Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another match preview. First things first, guys, make sure you run the likes up, subscribe if you're new around here, and as always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. And on Monday night, Chelsea look to get their Premier League campaign back on track and follow up Wednesday night's big win at Villa Park with a win against Crystal Palace. 11th versus 14th, proper mid-table clash, but with Eze, Elise and Marc Guéhi missing, it should make the task a little bit more straightforward for Chelsea, but it remains to be seen. Will Mauricio Pochettino stick to his guns, stick with the team and the players that won on Wednesday night, or will he revert back to type? Only time will tell. But to discuss all things Chelsea, the game itself, delighted to be joined by Nina. It's been a while. Welcome back. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. Felt like, obviously, after the Wolves game, massive sense of negativity, all doom and gloom around the club. Felt like Poch was one game from the sack. And then, in typical Chelsea fashion, when we most need it, backs against the wall, fans wanting a manager out, we suddenly pull a performance of the season out, and it's kind of quietened down the negativity a little bit. But obviously, by no means are we out of the woods yet. It's one game. Like, there's been too many false dawns this season. We really have to push on now.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. Yeah, look, again, I think it was a surprise. It was sort of out of the blue, but I think that just is the story of our season. You know, we've been so unpredictable, so inconsistent, and, you know, just when you get sort of slammed in the ground, you kind of see a win out of nowhere, and then it kind of lifts the fan base just until the next game when we, you know, have another bad performance. But obviously it was great. I kind of see it as a bit of an anomaly, though. I've been saying that, you know, we've been good in the cups, like we've been good in both cup campaigns this season, and I almost think that, you know, they kind of are a bit of a distraction because the league has just been abysmal for us, but the cups are almost that sort of time away from it where we get to really fight for something, and it almost looks like we are so much more competitive when we are playing for a cup. So yeah, obviously back in the Premier League, 2 tough away fixtures in a row, so we'll see how we go. But like you said, with key players out, Palace at the moment are going through a rocky ride, to say the least. There's a lot of, you know, a lot of disbelief in their fan base. A lot of them want Roy gone, so they probably wouldn't even blink twice if they did lose to us. For us, it's almost like we need a win, or we need a win to take something at least away to the Etihad following after, because I dread to think if we lose to Palace, again, that will just make things so much more toxic again, and then we'll go away to City and get nothing.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? I mean, to be honest, we've been a cup side for years. Like we haven't challenged for the Premier League since we won it under Antonio Conte in 2017. We've been nowhere near, and we have been a cup side. And I think again, this season is proving that for whatever reason, in the cups, we seem to be able to do something. Yes, of course, the draw is obviously plays a key part in that as well. But with knockout football, it just seems to bring something out of us, I suppose. You know, with just one game, you can turn up and you can put in a performance like we saw against Villa. But when you've got the sort of the week to week of the Premier League, where you've got to be consistent over a 38 game period, like that's where we're coming up short. That's where we're coming up, coming unstuck. And you know, it was interesting on Wednesday night. Obviously, you know, I said after the game that for me, it wasn't a coincidence that the 2 most experienced players were dropped, rested, whatever you want to call it. And we had our best performance of the season. For me, the less said about Raheem Sterling, the better. But in terms of Thiago Silva, like, I don't want people to think. Because I was getting a bit of stick in the comments when I was talking about the fact that, you know, he's becoming. I don't want to say he's becoming a liability, but teams are targeting him, and particularly in a back 4. We saw it against Wolves. The guy was exposed, balls in over the top. You've got a pacey front line, you know, and we're trying to push the defence up a little bit closer to the midfield. With Silva in it, that doesn't work. We're getting picked up, we're getting exposed. When Disasi and Badiashile played the other night, the gap between Enzo and Caicedo and the centre-backs was a lot smaller. It was a lot tighter. And for me, there was no surprise that we played a lot better. I feel if Silva had played potentially, then, you know, balls in behind to Watkins, Bailey, Diaby, they could have had a lot more success. So look, I'm not saying that Thiago Silva is finished at Chelsea by any means, and he's an exceptional footballer and he's helped us at times this season. But for me personally, like his role, he shouldn't be starting every week for us, particularly if it's in the back 4. As we saw when he came on, if you're trying to see a game out, you switch into a back 3, bring him on for 15, 20 minutes. That for me should start to be his role now as we look forward to the future. But I mean, did you see it the same way? I know it's only one game, but do you think it's a coincidence, or do you actually think there's something in it that, you know, Poch goes on about saying, I really trust these young players. He gave them an opportunity on Wednesday night. They stepped up and delivered in a difficult circumstances. He now has to stick with these young players. And actually, do you know what? It goes to show that we don't need Sterling in this team. I feel bad saying we don't need Thiago Silva, but he shouldn't be starting for us every week.
No, he shouldn't. And I don't think that was ever the goal for this season. And I think it was just inevitable because Badiashile started the season injured. Wesley Fofana was injured before we even came into the season. Colwell obviously was playing left back. So we didn't have we weren't spoiled for choice of centre backs, were we? You know, you really had the Sassy, and that was it. So Thiago Silva instantly had to step up and play a lot more games than maybe his legs could deal with. But do you know what? Even saying that, I think Thiago Silva has still arguably been our best defender this season, and I say that with chest. If anyone is unhappy with that, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. But you know, the fact that his experience, you know, we've been moaning about experience, it's been so prevalent in a lot of those games where we've played and a lot of our defenders have looked lost. You know, he's been vocal, he's been sort of navigating, helping them, and I truly do believe that Thiago Silva can take some credit for easing these youngsters into the back line. You know, French speaking as well. He's helped out the Sassy. He's helped out Badiashile. Colwell as well has had some of his better games. Obviously, he played as a left back, so you couldn't really say that he was paired up with Silva. But I honestly think he's made that transition for the youngsters so much easier. So I think it's unfair to say that, you know, he's done a bad job or anything. I do get it. I mean, Pedro Neto single-handedly exposed our whole back line on Sunday against Wolves. And maybe, yeah, he's an easy target to say, well, you know, why can't you cope? But I think playing at this level, still at this age, is so impressive and is, you know, admirable. But I don't think he was ever meant to start. So actually, every game. So I actually think that he's almost done more. But on Sterling, yeah, I think we've had chats about this, and I stand with you on that. Raheem Sterling getting the wages that he does, living up to the experience. What experience? You know, he's been so inconsistent. He runs into defenders constantly. You know, he does too much or he does too little. His tracking back at times is lazy. So I say, what do you really bring to the team? And you know what? Like, the fact is that even some of the worst games he's had, he's managed to get like a cheeky goal somewhere or get an assist somewhere, and then it kind of just goes under the carpet. But really, if you take away the G and A's, if you just look at the performances and if you just look at what he brings, it's so little. It really is so little. But Pochettino sees him as one of the senior players, and I don't think it's a coincidence that the only games he's rested him have pretty much been cup games. Managers rest their best players for cup games, don't they? And, you know, Gallagher is the same. Obviously, we know Pochettino loves Gallagher. Gallagher's been out for a couple games only this season. They've both been cup games. So I am almost 98% certain that Raheem Sterling is back in the lineup on Monday.
No, I'll be absolutely fuming if that happens. But I take a little bit of solace in the fact, though, that this Villa game was so important. And the fact that he didn't go for the experience in it is maybe showing that perhaps he has realised the errors of his ways and that actually it is the right way forward to trust these youngsters, let them play, let them go and express themselves. But just on Silva, I actually think like, what you're saying does make sense. And I think, look, I'm not saying he's been bad this season by any means, but I think where the lack of experience for us shows is in seeing games out, you know, and that's where him coming on for, say, 20, 25 minutes, switching to a back three or whatever it might be. I think a lot of the time where we've looked like we've lacked experience is when we've been up in games, but then the pressure's coming on from opposition teams and then we don't really know what to do. We can't deal with it. That's where I think his role can be adapted for the second half of the season. Obviously, it's going to be interesting to see whether he comes back in or not. Badiashile is undergoing a medical assessment. Don't know if he's going to be available. Levi Colwell is now available again. Do you chuck him straight back in? There's big decisions to be made. But, I mean, how are you feeling heading into this one? Because obviously, you know, we are still 11th in the table. I know like we have to enjoy Villa for what it was. It's a win. It's one win. We played really well. Let's enjoy it. But I'm sick of seeing people saying, oh, you know, oh, you should have been trusting the process. Look how well we did. It's like, it's one game. Like, we're sitting 11th in the table. Let's not try and pretend that everything's all right because we won one football match. It's not. We're not doing well enough. We're sitting 11th. I mean, how do you feel heading into this game? Because, as I said, we had the Man City game where we thought we were going to kick on. You know, we've had a number of times this season where we put in a good performance and thinking, right, this team's going to kick on now. And then they don't. And there's that feeling in the back of your mind where you're just like, it's the most Chelsea thing ever to do something like that against Villa and then turn up to a depleted Palace side who are struggling, don't want the manager there. It's pretty toxic at Selhurst Park. And then go there and not win. So, I mean, do you think this could be finally the time where maybe we push on and we put a run of games together? So we've got Palace Monday, then we go to City at the weekend, then it's the cup final. Then it's Leeds, and then we've got Newcastle, Brentford, etc. We've got a tough run of games coming up. We really have to start putting some points on the board. Otherwise, you are looking at a second consecutive season without Europe.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you want to say, yeah, I'm confident, but again, there's always that what if at the back of your mind, and we've seen that we have lost to, the bottom teams in the Premier League this season too. So it's tricky. I want to say that, given how, like you say, toxic things are at Palace right now, how uncoordinated they are, their performances, there's just nothing that they can really take as a positive in how they play at the minute. And given the fact that we're coming off the back of a win, I like to think those two things combined maybe give us some confidence. But I really do think it's all on how Pochettino will set up at the end of the day. Does he, like you say, see what worked on Wednesday and how players looked so much better and more comfortable in their roles? Enzo and Caicedo, that balance in the midfield that we haven't really seen this season. So it's up to him, really. If he wants to overcomplicate things and go back to something that hasn't worked when he clearly saw against Villa on Wednesday. Although saying that, Villa did play a high line, didn't they, for the majority of that game? I don't think Palace will give us that space. I don't think they'll give us. I think they'll probably sit back at us, try and hit us on the counter. So maybe we will struggle. I don't think it will be an extensive scoreline. I think maybe I'm going to go for a 2-1. Either way, it could be. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be tough. And like you say, we don't exactly have a winnable run of games coming up. So we need points anywhere we can get. So obviously we beat them at home, hopefully away. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no easy games in the Premier League, particularly games away from home. But if we are going to crack on and try and get into these Europa League places, which I think we have to do that, then you have to win games like this. Going to Man City is going to be very difficult. Brentford away is tough. You've got the cup final in between those games. You've got Newcastle, Arsenal coming up. There's a lot of difficult games coming up. There's a tough run. You've got to get the points on the board. It's as simple as that. And to be honest, I don't care how we do it. Yes, it would be nice to have another decent performance, but ultimately the points are the most important things. If we scrape by with a shitty 1-0, I don't really care. The frustrating thing for me is, though, like we see so often this season where Poch has just shown no in-game management, zero willingness to be flexible tactically, formations, etc. And then you see him in midweek. He plays Jackson down the left. Enzo and Caicedo are a lot closer together. Gallagher's in that more advanced role, pressing from the front, much more effective. He switches to a back three to try and help see the game out when Villa was starting to come back into it a little bit more. I'm just like, mate, where have you been? Where's this guy been all season? Why are you waiting until you're literally like on the verge of potentially being sacked to show basic in-game management, basic like football stuff? Why is he waiting that long? And then you're happy to see it, but then you also feel like, well, was that a one-off because he's under massive pressure? And then we're gonna revert back. So look, in terms of the manager himself, I mean, it's going to be this team selection and what he puts out Monday night is going to give a real indication as to what sort of a backbone he's got.
Yeah, 100%. Also, do you agree with me on this? Jackson looks so much better as a winger, don't you think?
He played left wing at Villarreal. He looks more comfortable on that left side coming in. I don't particularly like Palmer down the middle, but when you've got players like that, you can have a fluid front three. It doesn't mean that Jackson's got to spend the whole 90 on the left. They can interchange, cause problems, pull defenders out of position and whatnot. Look, I liked Jackson down the left-hand side. He looked like a handful. And all those people that were saying, that Jackson, they are so glad that Jackson's gone to the AFCON. I was saying, be careful what you wish for, because you'll realise when this guy's gone, actually what he brings to the team. And he's raw, and his finishing's not amazing, but he's a handful. He gets into good positions. He runs at players. He takes players on. He's got energy. He tracks back. He's a good athlete. Like, these are all things that are important to this team. And until players are gone, you don't realise what you miss. So look, I liked Jackson down the left-hand side. Whether he starts there again or not, I don't know. I'd like to see the same front three, but then you're thinking, well, shit, I'd like to fit in Kunku in there as well. And then you start got good selection headaches to have, which you haven't had for large parts of this season because of the injury problems that we've had. But I mean, how do you see us approaching this game? Because it's clear that Palace, they're letting in a lot of goals, 5 against Arsenal, 4 against Brighton. They're letting in early goals as well. They're likely to sit deep, allow us to have a lot of the ball. And that's often where we struggled at times, when the onus is on us to make something happen, to break teams down. We've got to move the ball quickly. I think that's why the likes of Madueke, Jackson, Palmer, etc. need to play. I feel when Sterling plays, he holds on to it too long. It takes too long to make decisions. We just don't move the ball quick enough. I mean, this is going to be a test of maybe how far we've come as a team in terms of being able to break sides down. So I've got no doubt that, particularly with Eze and Elise missing, Palace are just going to sit deep and, as you said, try and hit us on the counter.
Yeah, I think someone like Nkunku is so crucial in a game where, they will sit back at us because, we've already seen that he's got an idea up his sleeve where he can make a bit more of a risky pass, if you like, or a bit more of a creative pass and sort of unlock defenses. And I think that's crucial. And I almost think it's a bit of a waste of talent if you put him up top with no one to really create for him. Because, we've seen that Gallagher, Poch likes to put Gallagher sort of there as that person, but he plays it safe too many times and you can't play it safe against low blocks. Otherwise, you will get nothing out of the game. It's as simple as that. So I almost want to see Nkunku sort of playing behind a striker, which obviously the only one we kind of have is Jackson, and see how that plays out. Because, maybe Jackson doesn't always have that sort of striker instinct finish. A lot of people have been telling me that Nkunku is a better finisher, but I also think that he's a great creator. So I think you should play him to his strengths and use someone like that. How many games did we miss someone like that when, we did come up against a low block team sort of at the start of our season? We struggled. There was just no way of getting through. And, I yearned for someone like Nkunku. So I think now that we have him back and fit, I would like to see that. I think he could be so, so important.
No, he absolutely can. It's just where do you play him? Because Pop really likes Gallagher. Obviously, like Nkunku as a centre forward is not his best position.
No.
He's best playing as a number 10, really, a second striker playing off the main guy. But then where do you put Conor Gallagher? You would really say the bench, to be perfectly honest. I know that might sound a bit harsh, but you would say that.
But Pop won't do that, will he?
No, you'd have Nkunku playing off Jackson, maybe. Madueke one side, Palmer the other side. You can rotate round or whatever it might be.
Would you start Madueke in this game?
Yeah, because Poch talks about picking players on a meritocracy, right, and how they perform in training, how they're doing, and yet if he drops Madueke for this game, then he's just bullshitting about that. If the fact of the matter is, you're picked on you should be picked on what you do in training and what you do in the games. You shouldn't be picked on your name and what you've done in your career. And so Madueke, who was exceptional on Wednesday night, deserves to start again. There's no reasons for him to be dropped at all, other than Poch just not having the bottle to stick with him. But I think Madueke deserves to play. I mean, all this leaves Mykhailo Mudryk in a little bit of a difficult situation right now, because not only has Jackson done well on that left-hand side, it was an unused sub against Villa, something that I was frustrated by. When you're 3-0 up in a game, bringing on Sterling is utterly pointless. Those minutes could have been beneficial to Mudryk to just, help build his confidence or whatever. Yeah. So that frustrated me when I saw that. That's really the only downer from Wednesday night. It's just like, what is the point in bringing Sterling on? But yeah, at least Mudryk in a tricky situation. He's fallen right out of favour. There's ability there. I don't know if he'll get an opportunity on Monday night. I highly doubt he starts, but hopefully he maybe gets some minutes from the bench. But just wanted to quickly talk about Enzo Fernandez. A lot of fake stories coming out in the week about him wanting to leave Chelsea, questioning the project, not wanting to be there. I think he quite emphatically shut those down with his celebration. His agents come out and talked about the fact that that's just completely untrue. It was his best game in a Chelsea shirt. He is a top-class player. We haven't seen it enough. This now has to be the blueprint for Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo. The fact that there's no coincidence that they actually played closer together in that game on Wednesday night, and it was both their best performances in a Chelsea shirt this season for me. That's how you use him. Poch is fucked about with him, playing him as a 10, and the gaps between him and Caicedo have been massive. You look at the average position in maps after games, and Caicedo's on his own in midfield. No wonder we've been getting so overrun. Thoughts on Enzo? He needs to push on now, but I think a lot of his performances and maybe not living up to what people expect is how the team's been set up. So we know what he can do. We've seen his quality. Poch has got to set the team up like that. I mean, do you think Enzo could now push on from Wednesday night and really have a big impact for the second half of the season? Because he's got the quality, but again, he needs that team to be set up to suit him. And ultimately, he's one of our best players, and you build your team around your best players. Like, we should be building that team around that midfield pivot, but seemingly for large parts of this season, we just haven't done that.
100%. I agree with you. And that's exactly what I mean by it. We will see exactly what Pochettino's intentions are with how he sets up, because you have to replicate and continue something that has proven to work. Like you said, both of them looked so comfortable and played to their strengths. With Enzo, I think he's just been in a really difficult environment. I mean, who hasn't really at Chelsea this season? And I think, it's not been the best start to life at Chelsea for him. I also think a lot of stuff like injuries has played into it. He's had some sort of time in, time out. He's been off to international duty as well. So I think there's just been a lot of factors, and people forget that he's still, 22 years old?
Yeah, 22, 23, yeah.
22, 23. And obviously the only reason that he is under so much scrutiny is because of his price tag. And I just feel sorry for him, because that's not his problem. But, especially rival fans will always, of course, at the end of every game bring up how much he costs. And that is also so much pressure on a young player, isn't it? To have to constantly live up and feel like he has to prove himself. And clearly he does feel like he has to prove himself because of the celebration and the way that he sort of spoke to fans after the game as well. So yeah, it's sad. And I agree with you. I think he's one of our most exciting players. I think he is yet to reach a prime as well. He showcased so much talent at the World Cup as well, obviously made a name for himself. He's come into Chelsea now in a season where nothing is right, nothing is worked out, everything's trial and error. He's under a manager who maybe doesn't really know how to use him. Perhaps for the first time unlocked his true potential in the Aston Villa game, but that's been, how many games now? And I said that when he arrived into Chelsea in January last season, he was arguably one of our best players. And someone told me, it wasn't hard to be the best player at Chelsea last season. But I think that's untrue. I think if you can come into a Chelsea side that's struggling and, still shine, still produce something, still contribute, then clearly you should be trusted. You deserve the time. So yeah, it's all about that. I think he has been mismanaged, but I think there's no doubt, and nobody can tell me that Enzo Fernandez is not a brilliant player and will not become a really much better player than that.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, let's quickly dive into a bit of a lineup that we'd like to see on Monday night. I think it's obvious it's going to be the 4-2-3-1 again. I don't see that changing. Petrovic is in goal. Yeah, I mean, he's been exceptional for us. So it looks like an absolute bargain at £14 million. Would you agree with me? I mean, Badiashile is undergoing medical assessment. Let's presume that he's out. Let's presume he's fit. I think, for me personally, and you can, if you disagree, you can disagree. I think, for me personally, you stick with the same.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just the same defense as Wednesday night. If Badiashile is not fit, do you put Levi Colwill straight back in, or do you go with Thiago Silva? Because
I wouldn't risk the players if both Badiashile and Colwill were sort of question marks. I wouldn't risk bringing them into this game. I'd play the Sassy. If Badiashile is fit, then yeah, that looks good. But if not, I'd play Thiago Silva. He had some rest. I don't think that he's a massive cause for concern. I'd definitely start him.
I think you can probably. I think as well with Eze and Elise missing, you can probably get away with that a little bit more.
Yeah,
The midfield pivot obviously picks itself in Enzo and Caicedo.
100%.
This is where it gets a little bit more difficult now in terms of there's suddenly a few options. For me personally, I think
it's a good problem to have now.
Would you agree with Madueke on the left-hand side?
Yeah, I mean, he's mostly played on the right, hasn't he? Yeah,
he played on the left on Wednesday night because it was him and Gusto that were linking up down that side. I think he has to play there. Now, this is where
I put in Nkunku in the 10. I'd put Palmer on the right, and I'd put Jackson up top.
Yeah, so would I. But
I know that's not going to obviously happen, is it?
I'd go Nkunku, and I fully agree with Cole Palmer in this position here. And then you obviously go Jackson up top. But that's what I would do.
In our wildest dreams, Charlie, in our wildest dreams.
But then you've got a situation where you're like, right, okay, Poch is going to more than likely play Conor Gallagher, who had a very good game on Wednesday night. You think, right, okay, so if Gallagher plays, you're thinking, well, does Nkunku go up top and then Jackson doesn't play? The problem is all these guys deserve to play.
Yeah.
In terms of Madueke, Palmer, Jackson. Nkunku. It depends how seriously, Nkunku got a few minutes on Wednesday night. I think it just depends, but I agree. I'd start that. Man, I'd love to see Chukwuemeka in this team as well, but like, there's just not.
Oh my god, I keep forgetting Carney's fit now.
There's just not the space for him. So yeah, I would personally pick that, but then there are other issues as well. You're thinking, fuck, we're suddenly now with players coming back. There's certainly at the top end of the pitch, there's suddenly quite a few more options that we've not been blessed with before. So even if certain players have to come from the bench, whether it's a Mudryk, a Chukwuemeka, or a Gallagher or whatever it might be, we suddenly got good options on the bench, which we haven't had for large parts of this season. So I'd definitely go with that team. For me, there's no need to switch it up.
No.
I mean, I wouldn't complain if it was the same team that beat Villa, because I think all those guys deserve to play again, providing they're fit. But at the same time, Nkunku is probably one of our best players, so he does need to start. And we've got to build his fitness up and make sure he's 100% for that cup final. So yeah, I think that's a decent team. As always, guys, if you agree or disagree with the team, let us know in the comments below. Last thing, score prediction Monday night. Obviously, we just want to win. A few goals would be nice, but I mean, how do you see it going?
I'll go 2-1 Chelsea.
2-1. I'm going to go 3-1. I think we'll get a few goals. I think Palace will probably nick one just because we don't keep many clean sheets at this point in time. But let's wait and see what happens. As long as we win, try and move ourselves back into the top half of the table. That would be fantastic. Because if being brutally honest, we're not going to really get anything at Man City next weekend. So we need to make sure we get 3 points at Selhurst Park on Monday night. Nina, thanks so much for joining me. If people don't know where you're at or what you're doing, let them know where to go.
Yeah, check out my YouTube channel, guys, Nina's Chelsea Corner. If you subscribe, I'll be really appreciative. Thank you.
Reached 4,000?
No, nearly. So, guys, make that happen.
Yeah, guys, make it happen. Get Nina to 4,000, be tagged in a title, and help me get to 8K as well. About 100 more subs to go, so make sure that happens as well. But yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in as always. Smash the like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll catch you again in another one soon.